Well, I don't exactly think the information is hoarded. I just think that, I mean, first of all, people shy away from the industry because it's technically involving. Second of all, there are not too many people. I mean, it's not an industry that employs such a large amount of people. That's the second one. Then the third factor is that people, I mean, people just don't give information that they are not asked. It's it, it's a there are multiple issues, but it's not necessarily a deliberate effort of the industry to withhold information from the public.
Talking about information now, perhaps we should also be asking the questions from the NNPC and even the government. They talk about tank farms and those who don't have tank farms and those that have marketers to the corporation. The perennial problem is something that Nigerians would love to see a medium-term solution, especially as we move towards the Yuletide. What are those things that you think the corporation, as well as the government, should be talking about now, more so that they just returned from Iran?
Well, first and foremost, they need to meet the needs of the marketers, because as of today, if they don't meet the needs of the marketers, which may not necessarily be in our long-term interest, these issues will continue. It is when there is calm that you can make positive plans. When the needs are met, then the government, the agencies need to go on a robust, stepwise approach that will solve the problem on the long run. There are significant amount of people who are benefiting from the inefficiencies of the system, who are benefiting from the fact that people are in this crisis.
Show me
All that.
a moment here. Sorry to cut you there because now we're getting into a deja vu moment here. As we've seen this before, we've heard this before. Isn't it ironic that we're getting to hear the same thing about cabal, about subsidy, in a government that when it was in opposition, we have to really say this, when they were in opposition, they said there was nothing like subsidy, there was nothing like cabal, and they could actually fix this. And we're getting to say this, staring us in the face again. What do you think we should be asking now that we're still enmeshed in this problem?
Well, when they were in opposition and when they were campaigning, they wore the hat of politicians. They spoke as politicians, they acted as politicians, and they mixed it with some amount of ignorance. And they said the things that they said. Now they are in governance. Whether we voted, I mean, for anybody, whether you voted for them or not, it is necessary to ensure that the government in this matter succeeds so that life can be better for everyone. Now, having said that, if we have that as a perspective or as a background in how we approach the issues to them, the thing is that they need to see it as a matter of national urgency. They need to see it as a matter that can actually, when properly effected, produce jobs for a lot of people. Because the inefficiencies of the system is such that it does not allow the industry to expand the way it should. When the industry does not expand, it does not create the kind of jobs that it should create. And those are the things that they need to look into. It's their responsibility. They just simply need to fix it.
When you talk about like being better for the Nigerian, for the average Nigerian, are you suggesting that at this time the government is selfishly looking inwards, as in trying to do things that will favor it, retaining subsidy to favor itself than thinking about the average Nigerian?
Well, well, I mean that's a strong one. I mean, I cannot speak for the government, and I definitely would not want to speak for them. But in terms of them doing things that would deliberately hurt Nigerians, I doubt. But I mean, then again, I still don't know. But the issue is this: when you look at the what is caused by the fuel queues, when we do some little economic analysis here, a man goes to the fuel station and spends 4 hours getting fuel, and he has technically about 12 hours to work during the day. That means 1/4 of his working time has been wasted. Now, It also means that 1/4 of the time or the opportunity to generate income for his company or his business, whichever be the case, has also gone. So technically speaking, if that happens in 30 days, 1/4 of profitability has gone to just time wasted. So the nation is losing money anytime there's crisis. We're losing productivity and we're losing capacity for progress. There is nobody, irrespective of how selfish or how they are as a group, that will definitely want those kind of things to be the reality of the day. So the crisis does not benefit anybody except a few people who are masterminding it, and
And
that
that's
needs to
what,
be very
that's where
clear.
I come in. Perhaps we're not talking about selfishness, but we're talking about the lack of will to look the problem in the eye and say this is how we can fix it. Why is it so difficult for anyone to talk about subsidies removal? Don't forget that that was the major, minus that the government of President Jonathan had when he tried to remove subsidy, and everyone, including the opposition at that point in time, did say, wait a minute, there was nothing like that, you can actually fix it. Now they are there. What do you think that they should be doing? Because the nation really can't go on paying what they're paying if that is subsidy, and the next man there in your village buys the same product that has been subsidized for above, 3 times the stipulated price.
Yeah, I mean, I said that shortly before, and I'll repeat it. I think subsidy needs to go for the benefit of Nigerians. How they go about doing that, it's entirely their own responsibility. And that strongly is my opinion, has always been. Subsidies are necessary in certain circumstances, but sometimes, especially in these cases where the benefits goes to a few and in which there's a paper trail, it has led to a significant opportunity for corruption. But like anything else, it does not require a cowboy approach. It's a system problem. So it's going to take time. They're going to explore the system. They're going to take advantage of the lapses or opportunities that are going to come. But all of that cannot be done in a crisis mode. So the first thing they need to do is get rid of the crisis. When the crisis is gone, then they need to come up with a holistic plan. They may even need to call an all stakeholders conference, which will include outsiders. The legislators need to be active in it. The judiciary need to have a part in it. The marketers need to hear their views. The private sector will constitute a significant part of the actors within the downstream sector need to also hear their views. And then they need to merge that and come up with a solution. But that cannot be done during this period. So they need to have a short-term solution to resolve this and then spend the next few months coming up with a holistic opportunity to resolve it. One very important critical thing is also there is the fact that DPR, as an organization which is responsible for monitoring and enforcement, lacks certain capacity to actually do that. And that capacity basically revolves around human resource that should be available for monitoring. And where those issues exist, irrespective of whoever is there, they cannot enforce the law. I mean, a typical example, somebody was speaking to us yesterday about traveling between Lagos and Abuja, and then there were a lot of places where they were queues, which were basically NNPC filling stations, but there were also fuel in other filling stations, but those were selling at prices which were above the recommended regulated price. Now, those filling stations sell fuel today, tomorrow, and yesterday, but because there are so many of them, NNPC and DPR they don't have the capacity yet. The solution to that is that they themselves, as part of the measures going forward, need to develop a framework that will ensure that the vast amount of filling stations that exist in every local government in this nation need to have a channel and need to have a methodology for them to ensure that those people obey the laws. Those will be part of the reforms. I mean, those will be part of the changes that goes in there. It's not enough to just pass in some laws and changing some policies, but they must be enforced.
Okay, then, talking about the crisis, this ultimatum by the Senate, how feasible is it that in 2 weeks the crisis can be resolved?
I mean, any crisis can be resolved. even in a day.
If any crisis can be resolved, how then can the crisis be resolved in 2 weeks, considering the situation on ground as we speak?
Well, the situation on ground is a push and pull. It's a push and pull between those who want certain things and the government who's protecting certain measures. So there needs to be a happy middle ground. Once that is achieved, the crisis goes, the immediate crisis goes ahead. The details of the push and pull, I don't necessarily have. Now, where the government needs to act and do whatever they need to do is the fact that for every issue, especially of this nature, there's an economic part, there's a political part, and all the interest goes on to it. As at today, they need to have a political solution, and it is that political solution that will resolve it. And then they need to go back to the drawing board to look for a long-term solution such that stakeholders will not necessarily hold the nation to ransom.
When you talk about stakeholders, it's another coloration of what we have seen before when we talk about cabal in the industry. I see a smile on your face there. But for most Nigerians, they just would love to have such a wide grin the way you have there if the government will make any kind of move to making sure that stakeholders in the industry all come to the table and do what they should do. Now that we are talking about subsidy, it will seem as if the debate about subsidy removal or not is back to the discourse. What should we do as a lasting solution, you say, is to take away the subsidy? Do you think that this government has the willpower to do that?
Well, they must have. They must have the willpower to do what is right. Up until now, they've taken some very strong decisions, not necessarily popular, but because they believe that it's right. And if this is right, if the economic think tank within the presidency believes that it's right, if the people that they have within NNPC tell them that it is right, I think that they should do it. But it is for them to come up within their system and all the people they have within their system to sit down, identify what the key issues are, and go for what is right. You see, ultimately, we're going to make progress as a nation only when we do the right things, not necessarily when we do the political things. And the beneficial factors that come in at the end of subsidy removal are so huge. They're so huge that any wise person needs to be thinking about steps and processes for the removal. It may be phased removal of subsidy, but at the end of the day, subsidy should and will go.
Good place for us to anchor this. Bode Sowunmi, Energy Analyst. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment here. We'll return shortly. Stay with us.